Hi, this is Wendy from Knitters Brewing Company, and I'm going to demonstrate for you the various stitches that are involved in working shadow wrapped short rows. This is a great type of short row to do for sock heels or any kind of shaping. Really, it's easy to do. There's no wrapping or wraps to pick up, and it looks very tidy. So for this example, I'm going to do this as if it was like a heel on a sock. So first we're going to use the short rows along the outer edges to increase the number of stitches, and then we'll do two other stitches that we use to pull the number of stitches back in as if we turned a heel. So to get started, the first thing you're going to do is knit over to where you want to do your first increase, and I'm going to do it on the second stitch from the end. Now we're knitting, we're on the knit side of stockinette, so we're going to do the knit shadow wrap. So to do that, we lift as if to purl this leg, right leg, under the next stitch, or the stitch that you're wanting to make a wrap, and you put it over the needle, the left needle. Now you knit that wrap, and now put that stitch you just created back onto the left hand needle. So now you can see what it looks like is you have two stitches coming out of the same parent stitch. So that's how you create the wrap. Now you're going to turn and work the opposite direction. And then when we get to this end, we're going to do a purlwise shadow wrap stitch over here. So I'll pause till I get there. I've worked my way across purling this wrong side row, and I'm to the point where I want to do a purlwise shadow wrap stitch. So to do it on a purl side, first, you slip the stitch that you're going to be making into a double. Then you use your left hand needle, and going from the front to the back, you lift the purl bump below that stitch. Now you're going to purl this new loop that you just picked up. So do it just like you would any other purl stitch. And then to finish this, it's important to remember this part, you need to slip those new stitches back onto the left hand needle. And again, you can see what you have here is it looks like a regular purl stitch, but you've got two stitches coming out of that parent stitch instead of one. And now that it's back on the left hand needle, you're ready to turn your work and head back over to this side, and now we're going to put another shadow wrap stitch right next to the first one we did. I'm back at the end of the right side row, and now I'm up to the stitch that is just before the previous one that we shadow wrapped. Now we're going to do this one, and again, this is the knit side. So first we pick up the left leg or the right leg of the stitch below, put it over the needle, knit it, and then slip that next stitch back over to the left hand needle. And again, we have this pair of stitches coming out of the stitch below it. And we're ready to turn, and we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to come back over purlwise to the stitch before the ones we just did and do another purlwise stitch here. I've worked my way down the purl side, and I'm now at the stitch that's right before the last shadow wrap stitch I did. They're easy to see since you've got two loops coming out of one parent. So now we're going to do another purlwise stitch. So you slip it first, then lift the purl bump from the front to the back. Now purl that loop you just picked up and slip the paired stitches back to the left hand needle. Now what I'm going to do is take a little break, and I'm going to work my way back and forth so that I have a number of pairs on both sides. Each time I will work up to the stitch right before the stitches that have already been paired, and I will do the shadow wrap stitch. Here's the work after going back and forth a number of times. I have a whole series of knit shadow wraps on this side that were done on the right side, and then done from the purl side, or the wrong side as we were going this direction. I have this whole series of purl shadow wraps, and then in the center I have about 4 stitches that I didn't work. So now what we're going to do is work back and forth and take these wraps out like you would if you were doing your heel turn, because we've added all this extra gusset area in here, and now we need to take that back out. So to start that, what we do is knit over to the first pair. Now we're going to knit that together. And then we're going to add another wrap to the next stitch, and that's known as a double knit shadow wrap, but it's the same as we did before. So you're going to lift that right leg and knit into it, and then slip the stitch back over to the left hand needle. So now you can see, instead of having a pair of stitches coming out of the parent stitch, now you have a triplet. Alright, next thing we're going to do is turn, and I'm going to purl my way over to the first purl side pair of wrap stitches. Okay, here they are. So we're going to purl them together. And now you're going to do a double purl shadow wrap stitch, which is just going to add a third loop to this pairing here. So slip both of those to your right hand needle, just like you did the left or the purl version before. You're going to lift that purl bump from the front to the back, purl it as if you would. Now slip that whole triplet back to the left hand needle. So again, we've got 3 loops coming out of one parent. Now to take out all the rest of them, this is what you'll do each row. You'll work over to where you find a triplet, and there it is. Now you'll knit the triplet together, and then you'll create a triplet on the next shadow wrapped stitch. Oops, didn't quite get that slipped. There we go. And then we turn. Purl over to where you find the first triplet. Purl the triplet stitches together, and then add a third loop to the next purl pair, and be sure to slip that triplet back to the left hand needle. So now you can start to see this turn, this little pocket starting to form in here. So that's what you're going to do the whole time. Work over till you have a triplet, knit or purl the triplet together, depending on whether you're on the right side or the wrong side, and then add a third loop to the next shadow wrap. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and show you the results. And here's the result of our little exercise here. So this is the part, would be like a heel gusset, where we worked across and installed those pairs, those stitch pairs, and then we turned and started knitting the stitch pairs together and creating triplets and knitting them together, and that brought our stitches back out. So we added all this fullness in here. So on this side you can see this is where our purl shadow wraps were along this side, And over here is where our knit shadow wraps were. It's a very tidy looking turn. There's no gaps or holes. On the inside you have some elongated stitches a little bit, but it's a nice firm heel. And that's shadow wrapping.